great deeds are usually wrought at great risks. That's today's quote, and today's day is day 17 of our Flutter Advent adventure. Flutter Adventure, I kind of like that. So yesterday we added the ability to delete all of our journal entries from the settings view, and now we need to find a way to let our view model know that that stuff has changed. So there's a couple different ways. I'm going to show you the most fluttery way, and we'll probably take that approach. But there are a lot of ways you can handle this. Okay, let me pull up our project. Okay, great. Excuse me. So what's the Flutter way to handle this? And all of these are technically Flutter ways. They work in Flutter, so that's fine. Like any solution would be fine. There is this idea that when you navigate, you can when you navigate to a view, you can send things back when that item pops. So if we look at navigator.pop, there's an object with a result. You can store that, right? So in our case, when we click on this settings icon, it slides over the page view that we are working with. This means this is an indication of several things. Without a custom router implementation, or navigator implementation, I should say, this means that this page sits on top of this one. It's called from this one. So with that in mind, and what we just mentioned, we have a couple options. So we can set a Boolean here. So I'm going to say Boolean has cleared data is equal to false. When we initialize our state, I'm going to set has cleared data equal to false again. And then we want to, let's see. So we have cleared data set equal to false. We want to come down to where we are clearing our data, and then set has cleared data equal to true. We will call set state here, since it's a stateful item. And then what we want to do is our app bar has a couple things. It has a key, automatically imply leading, actions. What we want to find is the back arrow. So there is, or is that actually, that might be part of the scaffold. Drawer, on drawer change, bottom sheet, primary, extend body. Let's do a quick search. So Flutter back arrow. How to change the app bar back button color. Back button. So we probably want to implement a custom back button here. Simple enough. App bar leading slot when the scaffold has no drawer and the current route is not the navigator's first route. Okay, that's kind of confusing. So there is a leading widget right here, and that will be the back arrow if this is not the first item in the navigator. That's the default implementation. We can provide a leading and it will always be present. In our case, because we are managing this ourselves, and we know that the settings view is always going to be navigated to from the main view, we can go ahead and set leading to always be a back button. Another option would be to say something like navigator.of context dot let's look. I don't know what the method would be, but we can find it, right? Can pop, maybe pop. You know what? Actually, can pop. So this would be basically if there are routes that can be popped, whether the navigator can or can't be popped. The initial route cannot be popped off the navigator. Okay, so yeah, that would work. So if it is If the navigator can pop, we want a back button. Otherwise, we want a null. So this will give us, I'm not sure if this is the exact same type of code that they have, but this will give us pretty similar functionality to what Flutter gives us out of the box. And the reason we're writing what Flutter gives us out of the box is because we need to override the behavior of the back button here, right? So we want the back button to have a onPressed, and that onPressed will say navigator.of context.pop has cleared data. Okay, so this, if we navigate here and then we go back, this should be false. Fair enough, because we have not cleared our data and it defaults to false. So what we want to do is in our quote page view, we want to go to our actions. So our app bar is minimized here. I'm going to unminimize it. Here's our action, our navigator of context push. This push returns something. Future of t. T extends object. It's the thing that we send back when we pop. So in our case, we can say final did clear data is equal to the result of this push. There's one caveat. It's a future that it returns because it doesn't happen right away. It only happens once the user navigates away, and it could be null. So we'll await for this. Navigator push. If did clear data is equal to true, then we can, let's see, quote view model dot load all quotes. Basically reload yourself. Okay, so now that we're here, let's simulate this, or make it happen. Great deeds are usually wrought at great risks. There's no items. Great deeds in all caps. So we submit this, we hit here, we can see that our item shows up. That's fantastic. Now if we come here and we hit delete all journal entries and we say yes, then we come back here and it didn't reload. Why did it not reload? So what we'll do is we will add a breakpoint here, a breakpoint here, one here, and then we will add one in our settings view on our back button on press right here. And let's give that a shot. Let's see what this gives us. So if we click here and we click back, you know what? I'm going to restart my application. I think I might have a runaway process. So if I click on, yeah, that looks to be the case. This might take a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and relaunch my application. And while that happens, I'm going to take a sip of my beverage. Okay, and because it didn't reload, that was actually yesterday's quote. So that's an interesting bug where we probably need to handle that too at some point. So it thought this was the quote, but instead it was actually this quote. So it submitted, it looked like it was submitting for this one, but it ended up submitting for this one because it's using the current date for this button. Or sorry, for this button. That's something we'll want to fix, but for now, man, this needs to hurry up and launch. But for now, it's fine that this is submitted on the wrong one. We want to test the clearing functionality. Xcode build done. Okay, doing nothing is better. Oh, wait. Oh, I don't know what changed, but I just got a new app install, so I have none of my old data. So, okay, we're pushing. Yep. I really want to know what happens when it comes back. So if I hit delete all journal entries and we go back, this should be, okay, it's set to true. And now that we're here, it's set to true, so it triggers a reload. Okay, that seems pretty good. I'm going to remove our breakpoints. We have a lot of breakpoints. Let's just go ahead and remove them all. Now I'm going to add an entry here, doing nothing, ... just so we know which one it is. We see it right here. That's fantastic. Now if we click on this icon here and hit delete all journal entries, yes, and we come back, did it reload? It did reload. Let's make this not just an empty box. Let's make this something that is, so if we go to our quote view and we say for entry in quote entries, so we can add another conditional here, or a conditional here. So we can say if quote entries dot length, dot is empty, then we want to show something that's maybe just text that says no entries for this quote, why not add one? No entries for this quote, why not add one? Okay, so in this case, we'll see that if it's empty, and then to prove that, we can add a quote that says doing nothing, ... We hit submit, we hit this button here, and now you don't see that no entries for this quote piece. We'll make this a const just for minor performance improvements. And yeah, that feels pretty good. So we did run into a bug where the date had changed and this hadn't updated. So one thing we might want to do, trying to figure out how we want to handle this. We basically want to, like, every time we build this widget, we want to check and make sure that this widget, the quote page view, we basically want to check and make sure that the date we're showing for is still the current date, right? So I want to do something like maybe keep the current date. So final date time, last known today is equal to date time dot now. And then this won't be final because this is going to be state. Don't know why I made it final. Whenever we initialize our state, we can fetch that value. And then once we, how do we want to handle this? Let's see. So we'll fetch that value. And then in our build, we want to do something like if last known today dot is, interesting. So we have is before, but I really just want to check the day, right? So I guess what I can do is something like day. What does day give us? Just the int. What else do we have? Let's code hour. Milliseconds since epoch. There we go. That'll work. If that is less than, no, that does not work. Man, okay, let's think through this for a second. So I basically want just the day. I don't want the time, I just want the day. So what we can do is we can say last known today is equal to, let's say final now is equal to date time now. And this is going to be a date time, and the year will be now.year. The month will be now.month. And the day will be now.day. So now we've completely omitted any sense of the time, and we're just concerned about the date. And that should work really well for us down here. So we can basically take the same thing. So if last known today dot is before, and we need to get, so final now is equal to date time dot now. And then we want to construct a new date. So final now date is equal to date time year is now.year. now.month, now.day. This kind of feels weird that we're doubling up on our date times here. I'm curious if there's maybe a better way to do this. Is after is same moment before, subtract, etc. It's probably fine. If you want to go above and beyond, find a way to do this with a single date time instead of picking date time now and then creating a new date time from it. So if it is before now date, then we want to quote view model dot load all quotes. And this will happen every time this builds. Builds happen pretty frequently, so we should be in a fairly good spot there. We also did add a did change app lifecycle state in a previous video. This is what gets triggered whenever you background the application or foreground the application. So if it was background and you bring it back up to the foreground, it will load all quotes for us. We just have one more check. So if you're using this at 11:59 p.m. and then midnight rolls around and the day changes, you will load all your quotes and be on the current day. Generally, you don't want to do things like this in a build method. This is an edge case. I still am not 100% convinced it's what I want to do, but it's an edge case that should solve our issue. So I think I'm okay with it. Additionally, if this was making a network request, you probably would want to be more cognizant about that. And let's make sure that this isn't loading left and right. So I'm going to go ahead and restart our application. Okay, and I'm just going to put a debugger right here. And I'm going to restart one more time. Okay, great. So the logic is sound here. We're not calling this excessively, which is good. And we really should only call this in the scenario where it hits midnight and the day rolls over to another day. Okay, we fixed a couple issues. We have cleaned up this. We are now, whenever we delete all of our data, we're refreshing our view. So we're kind of keeping everything in sync. That's kind of been the spirit of this one. I want to try one more thing. I'm not sure if we're going to keep this or not, but we can go to the quote view. And what we're going to do is we will take everything in this padding, maybe center padding. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this padding in a container. We're going to change the container to a card. And I kind of like that. Maybe not 100% convinced. Maybe we give this a little bit more padding. Maybe take this up to 16. Okay. Hang on, maybe we take the padding back to 8, and then we give the card some padding. Let's try that. So if we wrap the card in padding, and let's keep it at 8, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that, I think. The padding still feels just slightly off. What if we made this 12? Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So these are cards. Now that you can kind of swipe through the cards, that feels pretty good. The one thing I'm maybe not super happy about now is that it's kind of in the center. I guess that's fine. I'll probably need to try that on a physical device and see how I actually feel about that first. We can clean up one more thing while we're here. This text, we have the quote text. And we wrote some code very, very early on that removes quotation marks from this quote. It is a quote, so we want to add those quotation marks back. So how do we do that? I'm going to use, we'll do double quotes and we'll escape them. So if you type double quote, 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 come back here, $, curly braces, and in between the curly braces, type quote.text. Now we've added quotes to our quote. This is pretty good. We're going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to take this, wrap it in quotes, wrap it in curly braces, put this here, and then we're going to put 2 dashes. I want an M dash. So I don't know what the Unicode value is for that. So I'm going to Google M dash. A long dash. Yep, that's the one I want, but I just want the dash. Thank you. Perfect. So we'll put that there. That looks pretty good. Maybe something we might want to think about too. I know we have the quote slightly bigger than the author, but we could change that around a little bit more so it becomes something maybe a little nicer. I like this. I'm not sure if that's the right way that quotes should be. How to format a quote. Okay. How do I put a quote in my paper? We don't really want MLA style formatting. I just want to see how other people are formatting quotes. What does Goodreads do? An M dash with a space. Perfect. Okay, we'll do the same thing. Frank Zappa. So many books, so little time. So true. Okay, so we've cleaned this up a little bit. I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. So what we'll do in our next video, oh, this is good. It's good to test this on big ones too, just to ensure that everything looks fine regardless of the size. We could keep the cards consistent too if we wanted by giving them a fixed size. And then what we'd want to do in that case is probably remove the size box that's putting spacing here and instead wrap the cards in, in a container. Let's try that really quick. Container height, actually, sorry, it would be this padding. The padding inside of the card changing to a container. And then this would get a height of like, I don't know, we'll just say 300. Okay, so we're already chopping stuff off, which means if we get to a really big quote, actually didn't chop off the big quote. That's kind of interesting. So if we do like 350, you can see there's that. Yeah, I don't know. 350 might be too much. But now I'm curious, why did it chop off this one? Which one did it chop off? It was this one or this one maybe? It's a little weird. So humoring me here, what if we remove this sized box? Okay, that seems good. What we probably want to do though is leverage flex. So we can take this, and if we were to, we have a couple options. We could flex this, or we could do main axis alignment, space evenly. If we set this to space evenly, we get the quote, we get the name of the author, and then we get the button towards the bottom. The one thing to be aware of is if the text is really long, these buttons will change position. You can kind of see this between these two quotes right here. The left quote has the button slightly higher up than the bottom. I don't necessarily think that's an issue, so I'm going to leave this as it is, and we will kind of roll with this. Okay. That's going to wrap up today's video. This was short, but we fixed quite a few things, and we cleaned up our code and our UI a little bit too, which is really nice. I would love to hear how you would tackle the refreshing the data from the view model. So if you want to let me know in the comments below, that'd be fun. We could discuss, and maybe we could look at implementing one of those. In the next video, I'm sure you're aware, we're getting close to Christmas. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to fill out our store page and get things kind of in a ready to go spot. And then if we have time, we'll trigger another build. And I will show you how to upload a new build to test flight and to the internal test track. So we'll probably start with Figma tomorrow and build that banner image that we need, which that'll be fun. I'm not a designer, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that'll be what we tackle tomorrow. So thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out. It probably helps you out, maybe, if you're learning something. And then there's also a bell that you can hit to be notified of any new videos. I think that's it. Have a great Monday.